We have John Kelly from Atomo Diagnostics standing by. John, if you want to start sharing your presentation, I'll let you know when I can see it coming up.
Yeah, we're just pulling it up now. Thank you for your time. I'm here with Will Souter, our CFO.
Okay.
So having a bit of trouble with the share screen, Mark. I'll just close the document and reopen it and see if that helps.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just checking you've got the permission to share. You should have. So let's just see to reopen.
Okay. We'll try again. Have to do it this way. Is that okay? Is that all right?
Yeah, if you just go to full screen now, Will, I think we should be good to get there.
Okay. Good, we're there.
Okay, I'll take it away, John, whenever you're ready.
All right, well, Mark, I'll kick off. Thanks everyone for joining. Nice to be here, and thanks for hosting us again, Mark. I'm just going to cover some of the highlights from the quarterly that we released last week, and then I'll hand over to John. John's going to take you through a little bit about, I guess, taking a step back in terms of the way Atomo approaches the market, and also to talk a little bit about our plans for FY23. For those of you that don't know the company, we are Atomo Diagnostics. We listed in April 2020, so coming up for 2.5 years post-listing. The company makes devices to make rapid testing easier for the end user, so integrating functionality and simplifying the processes. And we also make finished products themselves for rapid testing. So we have an HIV self-test approved in Australia and internationally with World Health and CE marked in Europe. And we also have a COVID-19 test that we've been selling in Australia. So there's obviously more information about the background of the business on our website. But jumping right into the quarterly, to summarise, we had a good quarter to get the year underway. We received about 1.4 million in cash receipts from customers, which was predominantly HIV rapid test sales, and another close to $500,000 in COVID-19 rapid antigen test sales. Early in the quarter, we saw a bit of a pickup in orders on the COVID side, but they started to slow down as the quarter unfolded. And we're seeing predominantly employers, government agencies and others putting responsibility for COVID testing back in the hands of the individual. So some of the corporate customers we had have slowed down in terms of ordering, but we've continued to make some self-test sales as the quarter's unfolded, and we'll see how things progress as we move towards the end of the calendar year. In terms of revenue for the quarter, close to $900,000, roughly split between HIV self-test sales and COVID-19 rapid test sales. And pleasingly, we saw a return of ordering from our OEM customer, NG Biotech, who buys our Pascal platform for their blood-based pregnancy test. So they put in an initial order in the quarter, and then an order subsequent to a quarter in close. So they've now ordered about 146,000 devices from us so far this year, and it's good to see some of that OEM business coming back as our existing and new customers move beyond COVID and get back to their core business. Around 100,000 HIV tests sold. We're continuing to work with our partner Viatris in international markets where they're our exclusive distributor, particularly for global health. They've registered the tests in a number of countries globally, and we're now starting to see more repeat orders, which is pleasing, particularly from some of the Southeast Asian countries. And that's really what we're trying to build out, is a portfolio of countries ordering on a repeat basis, and growing the number of countries. So we're growing both the number of tests sold to each country and the number of countries that we're selling to. So that's been interrupted by COVID, but it seems that we're getting back on track there, and things are starting to pick up. As I mentioned, the COVID business in Australia is very much in the hands of public policymakers and in the hands of decisions being made by employers. Most people will obviously have seen that generally people have taken a step back from widespread testing, but we are ready to respond in the event that testing starts to pick up again. And as I mentioned, pleasing to see NG Biotech in particular starting to order again. They registered the product in Brazil, and that's where some of the new demand is coming from. A very large market there, and they're quite optimistic about that. As I say, they have ordered over 140,000 units so far this half, but they're indicating that they think those numbers could be substantially higher as the year unfolds and, Brazil and other countries come online. Just a quick reminder in terms of annual sales revenue, just to show where we've come from. FY19 around $500,000 in revenue, FY20 a bit over 5 million, close to 7 million in 21, and over close to 14 million, around 14 million in 22. And importantly, we've been really careful with our cash and finished the year with finished the quarter, I should say, with 11.25 million in cash on hand and debt free. Just to highlight the key value drivers that we see within the company and what we think isn't necessarily being recognised in the market at the moment, as the sector generally is under some pressure, and we're expecting to see that turn around. Just to remind everybody, this approach that Atomo takes to rapid diagnostics is not an approach that's been taken by other diagnostic companies, and John's going to talk some more about that today. As I say, we finished the year and the quarter and the first quarter of this year with a strong balance sheet and plenty of runway. We've got some committed core investors and a very experienced board and management team to manage the business as we move into 23. Really importantly, we spent a chunk of the capital we raised at IPO in building out our production capacity, and that's now done. And so really we're in a position to monetize that with growth in sales without significant capital associated with that. We're obviously still continuing to invest in R&D, and John will talk a little bit about that, and core areas of capital, but predominantly the spend is done, and we can ramp up to 18 million units of production with our existing capacity. Obviously, the pandemic's changed the way people think about rapid testing, the way and just broad awareness and understanding across all the key stakeholders, from the end consumer right back through to regulators and government and everyone in between. People know what rapid testing is. They can see how it can be used and how it can be useful. And that changing landscape has, it positions Atomo really well to provide its products into that market. And, we haven't just started doing this as a result of the pandemic. Our platforms have been in development for many, many years. And that's, I guess, vindicated by the fact that we've been able to secure customers who want to buy those products and also secure regulatory approvals, with organisations like the World Health Organization, which is, a long and difficult process. And again, just to remind everyone, there's innovation here and there's patents that sit behind the products and the markets that we're approaching. A significant investment in R&D has led to, to that portfolio of patents and protected IP, as well as the know-how in terms of how to actually build and I guess bring these assets to market.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think what Will's talking about is a unique approach that we've taken to the market, and that's really looking at the end user and really basing the whole experience around the end user. And that was based on the fact that the chemistry used in rapid testing was developed and functional and fully commercialized, but the end user really hadn't been considered in the delivery of those products. So, when we bring products to market, we want our products to make the incumbent technology look obsolete. And we think when you compare the bits in box format with the Atomo solutions, we've done that successfully. And that's really been through delivering products that look and feel consumer friendly, removing complexity, removing the need for errors, users to really judge whether they've done things correctly. And that makes users feel confident, they make less errors, they get better results, and that makes the regulators and clinical infrastructure happy as well. But really, for success in consumer health, making the user happy is paramount, because that leads to repeat use and recommendations to others. And I think with our first range of platforms to market, the HIV test, we've done that well. So how do we do that? We really look at the existing products, how they're used, how they're packaged, the whole life cycle of those products, and we identify any area where we think we can remove a step, or we can make that step integrated or mitigate errors associated with that step. And then we drill down into each of those opportunities and deliver a level of functionality that addresses those, and we then engineer them into a finished solution. And that allows us to really understand the needs of the user in a way that I think a lot of diagnostics companies don't really take the time to understand. And that, I think, reflects our sort of consumer health focus when we came to this market. And that allows us to develop some really valuable proprietary know-how around what needs to happen when to make this test procedure bulletproof. and it's allowed us to develop then some quite elegant engineered solutions that we've been able to patent at high levels. How to make steps happen in a certain sequence so the user doesn't have to think about it. How to automatically collect and deliver very controlled volumes of blood. How to deliver controlled volumes of sample, and to do that fully integrated into an elegant solution. Makes it, from the user's perspective, very easy to use, but it means it's a fairly comprehensively engineered solution, and one that we're now seeking to expand beyond blood. We've proven to the market now we can make the world's best home test blood platforms, and we're now moving into other applications like swab testing, and then beyond that, saliva and at-home blood collection. So this just talks about that iterative approach to design. We look at some form functions, some foamies, we get some functionality established. We then try and integrate that onto a cassette, get it working. And then once we've done that, we look at improving usability, improving performance. And then the last phase is really that optimization for high scale manufacturing, low cost assembly. And that gets us to a scalable product that meets the requirements not only of users, but manufacturing and regulatory requirements as well. And that allows us to scale these platforms at low cost and keeps us cost competitive in markets where the pricing is critical, and in markets where the pricing is not as critical, it allows us to return a very significant margin back to the business. And we think we've done that successfully. The user feedback on the product has been extremely positive. We have users who would rather pay for this product than use the free one that they're being given in the UK. And that allows us to deliver a level of performance that's not only keeping the user happy, but also delivering much better clinical performance. And that's allowed us to get regulatory approvals that other blood test kits have not been able to get. And that's really where I think the value is for the business moving forward, to expand that range of products beyond blood into consumer health testing applications. And that's a market that up until the pandemic was niche, it was small, and it wasn't one that allowed the bigger diagnostics companies to get too excited. But obviously the pandemic has transformed the market. The amount of effort, focus, and money going into, and particularly the US market for home testing, is very significant. And our platforms are ideally placed to deliver solutions. And we're very excited about the types of arrangements that we can deliver in the market, because the user feedback that we can bring to market is second to none. And I think the larger diagnostics companies and the e-commerce companies really do value this ability to make the user happy with a product that's fit for purpose. And that's really our key differentiator. And I think one that the market here in Australia maybe hasn't fully appreciated, because that transition to home testing is less advanced here, although it is, I think, inevitable that the market will transition more to consumer-focused e-commerce based delivery. And healthcare is one of the last bastions of non-online delivery. But I think that's now changed, and that's where I think we're going to see some valuable contracts and arrangements coming to market. As mentioned previously, we delivered a range of blood tests to market. We learned during the pandemic that a lot of upside was non-blood. So we've worked very hard to bring a swab test device to preliminary verification. We've got some really promising results on that device in terms of performance and usability, but also some very encouraging feedback from the diagnostics companies that we've showed it to. And we're looking to move forward through the rest of this FY with a full commercialization program. We have been able to demonstrate on our blood platform best in class for HIV. We are keen to see our partners coming back to market on the platform. We did pivot into COVID really because a lot of our partners on blood platforms moved off to focus on COVID, and there was a hiatus on new development pipeline opportunities that we were working on. We're seeing not only a resurgence in inbound interest, but I think more focus now on home testing broadly within the market. And I think that gives us good prospects for a range of contracts in FY23 and 24 as the market continues to appreciate the value that the platforms bring, and the reputation and awareness of our products, particularly in the US, is improved by our commercial activities there and having a couple of people now focused on growing that international business for us. We also know from the pandemic that the apps were pre-pandemic difficult to get approval for from regulators, but now the pendulum has swung the other way. Regulators are very interested in being able to deliver home-based apps because they not only improve usability by delivering more user-friendly instructions than a paper-based IFU, but more importantly, they can control the results interpretation. They provide traceability. They provide data uplinks back to healthcare providers, insurance payers, and employers. And that allows for the reimbursement funding cycle to be more robust in home markets. And we've gone to a lot of trouble to develop an app that we're now in the process of commercializing, primarily for self-test use. And we continue to work with a couple of manufacturers to make sure that a version of our cassette is compatible with their plug-in readers, so that we can also continue to target the point of care doctor office market that's also expanding into pharmacy testing as well. And really, we're now seeing, I think, the fruits of that labor over the last year. We're starting to look at some pilot programs with some new manufacturers that are interested in assessing their assays on our platform with a view to getting an improved level of usability in their product. And I think ultimately consumer OTC home test approvals. And we're expecting to see agreements now come to market over the period FY23 and beyond as we deliver those contracts. And as Will mentioned, we are at scale. We can make up to 18 million cassettes per annum now without further CapEx investment. So we expect to be able to see revenue scale without a corresponding proportional increase in our OpEx and CapEx. And that means we're leveraged to growth now quite cost effectively. And the strategy for 23 and beyond is to continue to scale up our HIV business. That's a vending machine at a university in Australia, where the university is starting to promote safe sexual health practices, and HIV screening is a large part of that. We have an approval for our professional use HIV test in Europe, and we're looking now to roll out a distribution network and launch that product in this FY, and continue to see continued growth in other markets as Viatris continue to register in key markets. We're now registered in over 40 countries. We're continuing to really focus on scaling up the OEM business. We've got a pipeline of interested partners that are assessing the technology, and we're working with them to bring them onto the platforms. We're looking to push into adjacent markets such as animal health, and establish reseller partnerships where companies that do a lot of new assay development for market can offer our platform in that development program, so that companies developing new tests can come to market directly onto our platform rather than having to launch a standard test and then requalify on our platform as a secondary activity. So all of that we think will continue to deliver momentum to the business, and we expect to see that revenue come through as we roll through 23 into 24. And we're very excited about the opportunities, both from an OEM partnering perspective, as well as finished products that Atomo can now bring to market itself. That's a quick recap on our strategy moving forward. Happy to take some questions now.
Thanks, John. Yeah, we've got two from the audience. Sorry. One is, I think it says, when do you predict a company will begin to make a profit? I think a more broader question around that would be, the end of the kind of CapEx build and getting all the facilities up and running. What level of kind of, and I know it's down a bit to sales mix, finished product versus OEM product, but where is the kind of break-even point as we sit here today in terms of sales?
Well, Mark, obviously we're not giving forecasts, but I guess people can have a look at the numbers and make some estimates. And the point that John made, that CapEx is largely complete and fully installed, and that OpEx doesn't need to rise significantly to fill that production capacity. We've got a platform business and we can grow that without needing to add significantly to OpEx. So with the OpEx running at less than $1 million a month and our gross margins in the 40 to 60% range, as you say, depending on the product mix, then you can back calculate what number we need to make to break even from an operating perspective. We were cash flow positive in Q3 of FY22, so that obviously gives people another data point to look at in terms of what we need to do to achieve that. And again, there are a lot of these opportunities out there. So predicting which of those lands to get us there is difficult. But the idea is to have a portfolio approach to lots of different customers across OEM, as well as bringing through our own finished products and finding partners to support that activity. And so when you look at that on an overall portfolio basis, we can see a pathway to profitability.
I think the other point to note is now that the market, particularly in the US, is very focused on opportunities in consumer health and home testing. I think the value of our technology in those market segments is increased, and therefore our ability to look to secure development and licensing support on the way through to revenue is more feasible than it was pre-pandemic, when our technology was unproven and we didn't have the regulatory approvals and the market credentials to secure those markets. And I think, the deal with Access Bio, where we were able to bake in minimum take or pay, sort of evidences that. And that's, I think, something we're continuing to focus on. So I think revenue in the medium term can also be augmented by non-product sale revenue as we get through the market.
And this is maybe one for offline, or maybe you can direct them to press releases or their website, but evidence for the claim of being best in class in HIV, they're saying any links here. Is there specific stuff on the Atomo Diagnostic website you can point them to, Will or John, or
in some of our previous presentations, in some of our previous presentations, we've talked about independent verified usability that has been delivered as part of the CE mark approval and also the World Health pre-qualification. Those levels of usability are best in class when compared to other self-test formats or platforms in terms of ease of use. I think also when we look at our device compared to standard kits that are the main sort of competitor in the market, our professional use user preference is over 90%. So that again, I think talks to what we consider best in class recognition for the usability that we deliver.
And I know you've been very active on the conference scene now that has reopened. What's been the major kind of feedback you've got from these conferences around the HIV business in particular? Because I saw Gilead Sciences, were very bullish on their HIV kind of business. I know it's they're more on the drug side, but there seems to be a lot of interest, at least on their side, on HIV drugs, new drug testing, bringing new treatments to market. The HIV sector seems to have reignited a bit in terms of what companies are looking to invest in and trial new treatments in.
Yeah, no, I think that the HIV funding more broadly and HIV focus took a hit through the pandemic as kind of governments and public health, swung away from HIV to deal with COVID. And we saw some of that, some of the forecasts from our partners in global health were not met. And that's in large part because of a slowdown in-country registration and funding focus from key players. That, to your point, has reversed, and we are now seeing a resurgence in tender opportunities and drugs to treat downstream diagnosis. And I think, Viatris, our partner in LMIC markets, is one of the leaders in the supply of HIV medicine to global health. And I think that was why they were interested in getting exclusive access to our tests, so that they could, help diagnose people and then obviously, get them into treatment where they have an economic and sort of a diagnostic to drug transition model. So I think that's one that we think is very valuable, and we're actively looking at other applications where we think our end customer / partner could be a pharmaceutical company rather than a healthcare provider or public health provider, because for HIV is not the only opportunity for us to deliver a diagnostic as part of a transition to treatment program, and obviously pharmaceutical companies are very attracted by being able to capture new customers. So we think that is something for certain applications very exciting.
And Mark, just in terms of the response we've been getting to specific activities, marketing activities for HIV. That's predominantly been focused on Australia, where we obviously control the distribution of our own product. And what we're looking to do is establish Australia as essentially, obviously, a profit centre in its own right and a good source of revenue, but as a pilot program for what an HIV self-test in a developed market looks like. So we've been working through a number of different approaches to that across social media, in-person attendance at these conferences and things, and then obviously the TGA changing the rules around advertising and pharmacy sales, relatively recently. We've been clearly we've been targeting that market. So, a salesperson whose responsibility is to go and build that pharmacy market. The marketing team focused on getting awareness out there in terms of brand awareness, being really, really well received. There was a big expo on over the weekend here where we had a booth, and there's just growing awareness of these sorts of ways of managing exposure to sexual health that people just didn't know about, and Atomo is the only approved HIV self-test. So what we're looking to do is prove that concept here in Australia, grow the numbers as much as we can in a relatively small market, and then take that model into developed markets. And that's obviously helpful in our engagement with potential partners, particularly for North America, where we're looking for go-to-market partners to help us with that sort of thing. To give you an example, we weren't selling anything to pharmacies 6 months ago because we weren't allowed to. We're now seeing the number of pharmacies growing, and also the number of pharmacies making repeat orders and larger orders growing as well. Now, they're not big numbers yet, but it's a good example of what happens when the rules change, and that's what's happened globally. And when you're able then to focus your efforts on growing those markets. And as I say, it's a great blueprint for what we could be doing in North America and other opportunities to really grow in European and developed markets in particular.
Yeah, and I think in regards conferences in North America, our focus has been to secure OEM partnerships, because they give us scale. We don't have to pay for the go-to-market costs for regulatory and clinical with partner products. And there it's really been a case of generating awareness that Atomo has this solution, that it does have regulatory approvals, that it is at scale, that the offering is de-risked, because pre-pandemic, we didn't really have that credibility, because we didn't have the sales, we didn't have all the regulatory approvals. And then obviously during the pandemic, everybody was focused on COVID and we couldn't travel. So really now it's been a case of getting the awareness up so that we can have that funnel of inbound inquiries from people that want to find out more. And we're now in the process of, filtering through those and starting to turn around small builds of pilot sample product and evaluation activities that then, we expect to lead to agreements. And the good thing is we're talking to all types of customers, but we are getting more engagement with bigger companies than we were before the pandemic. And I think that's because home testing is now of more interest to them than it was previously. Okay,
great. John, we're just up on time there. We've got like about a minute to go, so I think I'll leave it there rather than squeezing in another question that would be difficult to give an answer to in 45 seconds or so. But thank you very much for coming back in and giving us an update. And hopefully we'll hear from you in the new year, end of January, when the next 4C comes out.
All right, well, thank you for having us.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Will.